I now hand the conference over to Ms. Padmaja Reddy, Managing Director of Spandana Spurti Financial Limited. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome you all to Q3 FY21 Financial and Business Update call of Spandana Spurti Financial Limited. Q3 was fantastic for us with collections nearing pre-COVID level and loan disbursements hitting all-time high. We can now confidently state that we could manage the disruption caused by COVID, and from now on we can focus on growth. Our experience of managing multiple crises in the past has helped us in assessing the risk much earlier and taking all precautionary steps ahead of the industry. While we were the first MFI to we opened all branches in April. We started making provision from Q4 FY20 onwards. Glad to share with you that we grew to the second largest MFI by September in terms of microfinance portfolio. We have overtaken the second largest MFI and our portfolio was higher by 610 crore by September itself. The book grew from 1,300 crore in 2017 since we exited from CDR to 7,764 crore by December 2020. Back then, in 2017, we were the 11th largest in terms of AUM. Managing crisis after crisis, Demon, Kerala and Orissa floods and now COVID, the book in the last 3 years grew by 6 times with a CAGR of 61%. As per micrometer of September, we have done highest disbursement in Q2, which was 1,634 crore compared with all other NBFC MFIs, and we are the only MFI in more than 5,000 crore portfolio category recorded highest growth of 35% YOY. 9 other MFIs in the list fall in small, medium and large with less than 5,000 crore portfolio category. Our book remains static in only Q1 and we have been growing from second quarter onwards despite challenging environment. We have achieved pre-COVID level loan disbursements this quarter. Loan disbursement increased from 49 crore in Q1 to 1,634 crore in Q2 and 2,317 crore in Q3. We disbursed 4,000 crore in the last 9 months. Loan disbursements grew by 42% QOQ and 18% YOY. We disbursed 1,050 crore in January and this is all-time high. Portfolio grew by 410 crore from 7,354 crore to 7,764 crore in Q3, recording 32% growth YOY and 5.6% QOQ. Out of 7,350 crore portfolio, 3,859 crore portfolio has been created post-COVID from April onwards. All new loans disbursed have monthly repayment frequency and we changed it to monthly frequency from November 2019. We transitioned from bi-weekly to monthly in response to customer demand driven by a lower time commitment from their side. Industry has evolved over time where more frequent borrower meetings were once required to maintain discipline are not required anymore as borrowers became more experienced with microfinance and credit bureaus. It was proven beyond anybody's belief that the frequency of loan repayment is not an indicator for collection efficiency. In fact, monthly loans have 97% collection efficiency in December versus bi-weekly loans having 90% collection efficiency. We reduced interest rate by 125 basis points in the last 9 months with monthly loan repayment and reduced interest rates. We target to increase our market share in each and every state we operate in. Our subsidiary, which is CRIS Financial Limited, which is an NBFC, the portfolio grew to 260 crore with a CAGR of 36%. So this being an NBFC, the focus has been in terms of offering gold loans, business loans, and loans against property. So in the last quarter, in the last 3 months, we opened 15 new branches, and these branches were opened in AP, Telangana, Bihar, Kerala, Haryana, Rajasthan, and UP. So in the last quarter, as I mentioned, that like very few branches, they have resumed new group formation. So we could add 64,000 new clients in the last quarter. Collection efficiency increased by 12% from 84% in quarter 2 to 96% in quarter 3. It is indeed wonderful to notice that January collection efficiency has hit 98.74%. Absolute value of collections increased from 493 crores in Q1 to 1,566 crores in Q2 and to 2,068 crores in Q3. We collected 2,924 crores out of 6,829, which was our pre-COVID portfolio, and this accounts for 43% of the total pre-COVID portfolio. So till December, we collected 4,127. The total demand of 5,050 crores. Considering the demand like as it was for moratorium period as well, we achieved 82% cumulative collection efficiency. We have written off 76,000 loans, having an outstanding of 212 crore in this quarter. All these loans are 120 DPD by 15th January against total borrowers of 25.5 lakh. 25 lakh borrowers, they paid either all or few installments. So it's 50,000 borrowers who are yet to start repayment, and they form 2.2% of total borrowers. We continue to maintain our leadership position in portfolio quality. Pro forma GNPA was 2.7% as on 31st December, and this is the best portfolio quality which we are able to sustain over a period of time. 0 plus par was at 10.9%. So we have been making provisions for the last 4 consecutive quarters, and so far we made 411 crore provision towards COVID and others, which is equal to 5.9% of total AUM. So we raised 4,289 crore debt since lockdown till date. Of this, 924 crore is raised through capital market instruments, MLDs and NCDs. So this is the first time that we wanted to diversify our funding sources, and while MFIs were traditionally dependent only on banks, so this is the first time that we raised over 900 crore from capital markets. So despite the situation is really challenging, but we added 12 new relationships since lockdown. In this quarter alone, we added 8 new lenders. So cash balance was comfortable at 776 crore on 31st December, and we had another 2,600 crore worth of sanctions in pipeline. State level and district level diversification is very much intact. 3 largest states, MP, Odisha and Karnataka. It used to be Maharashtra, the 3rd largest, but now Karnataka has grown large, and these 3 are the largest states. They constitute 47%, which is below 50% of the total portfolio. We have only 10 districts with more than 1% of the total AUM, and no district has more than 2% of the total portfolio. We continue to maintain 92% rural and 8% urban in terms of AUM. So we continue to do better on efficiency and productivity metrics. We have been hiring every quarter, and the headcount increased from 7,614 to 8,339. Loan officers also increased from 5,818 to 6,389. Average AUM per branch increased from 6 crore to 7.5 crore in the last 1 year. Operating cost continued to be lowest at 3.4%. Abhiram, which is our group company, contributed 2.96 crore towards rent for the branches for the quarter. Had Abhiram not contributed this amount, operating cost would have been 3.46 and the difference is just 6 basis points. Average portfolio for loan officer as well increased from 1.34 crore to 1.56 crore. Cost to income has been marginally increased from 21.3% to 23.4% YOY, and this is due to 26 crore interest that we de-recognized on the loans that we wrote off. Cost of borrowing declined by 110 basis points from 12.2% to 11.1% YOY. Cost of funds on AUM reduced from 8.2% to 7.7% YOY. Marginal cost of borrowing in Q3 increased by 80 basis points from 10.6 to 11.4%. Net interest margin decreased by 110 basis points from 16.7% to 15.6% YOY. Pre-provision operating profit for 9 months decreased slightly from 595 crore to 567 crore, and PPT also reduced from 510 crore to 133 crore. This is due to provision and write-offs. 9 months PAT was 96.2 crore. So we incurred a loss of 30 crore after writing off 212 crore portfolio in the current quarter. Normalized pre-tax ROA for the quarter was 10%. Post-tax ROA stood at 9.4%. Our net worth increased from 537 crore in 2017 to 2,738 crore. Capital adequacy ratio was 39% as on 31st December. On-balance sheet portfolio compared to previous year increased by 900 crore from 5,915 crore to 6,816 crore. So Odisha has been doing much better, and collection efficiency in the state increased from 85% to 95%. Maharashtra has also shown improvement from 86% to 94%. Backed by AP experience, we have been avoiding over-leveraged states during D1, 1 year prior to D1. So we pulled out from UP, and now we are not present in Assam and Tamil Nadu, and we also pulled out from West Bengal, having realized that the state has more players and the borrowers are overly leveraged. So we are very much on track to hit 8,000 to 8,200 crore portfolio by March. With this brief overview, now I open the floor for questions and answers.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The first question is from the line of Sarvesh Gupta from Maximal Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening, madam, and thanks a lot for taking my questions. So first is this calculation of pro forma GNPA. This has been made on a net of the write-offs that you have taken, right? Otherwise, if you normalize it for the write-offs, probably it will increase to 4-odd%.
We have calculated the pro forma GNPA on the net portfolio, like post write-off. So if I don't consider that in the denominator, I think the GNPA will be 4%. Yes.
Understood. And secondly, I could not understand one thing. Now you have written off most of the portfolio above 120 days, the 200 odd crore write-offs that you have taken. At the same time, you have shown that as on December, there is a further 2.2% of the people who are having no payment. So these are less than 120 DPD, but no payment is coming from them. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on the overall, write-offs and provisions, now we have taken almost 8% of the AUM. So going forward, I mean, in quarter four and maybe quarter one of next year, how much more, COVID-related stress do you think is still in the book, which will show in the subsequent quarters? And maybe you haven't taken that into account because that is less than 120 days. So 82% of demand has been collected. So that remains 18% is still at risk. And out of that 8% write-offs you have taken. Now, regarding the remaining 10%, what is basically the view of how we will have to do provisions with respect to them?
No, I think the provision that we made, like which is available on our balance sheet, like it is 5.9% of the AUM, and it is not 8% what you mentioned.
Okay.
So it's 5.9%.
No, that is 8%, madam. You have written in the 623 crore is 8% of your net AUM.
No. What we have written off is 220 crores, and the AUM on 31st March it is 7,663, right? So post write-off.
That's fine. I was referring to you mentioned. Yeah. That I understood, madam. My question was that you said that of the total demand from the pre-COVID portfolio, 82% has been collected till now, and 18% is, I think, is still not collected.
What we collected is 43%. So I have given numbers. The pre-COVID portfolio was just a minute. So 83% is like the cash collected. What we collected as against like the pre-COVID portfolio, that is 83%. But again, in terms of like if you look at what was the pre-COVID portfolio and how much collections that we have done, the total amount that we collected is 4,127 crores. As against a demand of 5,050 crore, which is 82% collection efficiency. But however, if I compare this number with the pre-COVID portfolio, the pre-COVID portfolio was 6,800 crore, which means like this, what we collected is 43% of then portfolio, whatever was the portfolio on 31st March.
Understood. So my question was that after the end of, after doing all these write-offs and provisioning until now, until December, how much more COVID-related provisions stroke write-off is expected to come in the future quarters, or are we fully done with what we feel is the COVID-related stress which was there in our book?
I was said like we have written off 220 crore and we still have 411 crore on the balance sheet like towards provision. So in coming 2 quarters, what I expect is like we might be writing off, but to that extent like there is a provision write back. I don't think that like there will be a hit to the P&L.
And neither in the form of write-off. So you feel that now we have adequately written off plus provision on the COVID stress. Is that the right understanding?
Yeah, that is the right understanding. Like we have only 2.2% of the borrowers who are not paying. So even if like I consider the entire outstanding, which is going to be at risk, so I think like 400 crore provision is more than enough.
Understood, madam. And I think you had also mentioned last quarter that you were looking at around 25% AUM growth. So I think this quarter itself, if we add back that 200 crore write-off, we had around 600 crore odd accretion to the AUM. And then next quarter, if you do 800 crore, then you will be in track to get 25% AUM growth. So I think roughly 8,500 is what you are looking at by end of year. Is that the right understanding?
8,500 might be little difficult. Of course, like if I add like written off portfolio, yes, like we are there. But otherwise, like net of written off portfolio, I think like will be at 8,200 or 8,300.
Understood, madam. I'll join back in the queue for more questions. Thank you.
So from 6,800, like the portfolio grew to 7,300 in the first quarter. second quarter, and from 7,300 now it has grown to 7,900. Of course, post write-off it is 7,700.
Understood, madam.
Mr. Gupta, is that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Janice Cheda from Dimensional Securities. Please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. There are two small questions from my end. Number one, why is the marginal cost of borrowing gone up from 10.6% to 11.4% despite the fall in interest rates? And secondly, is there no assignment or PTC done during the quarter?
The reason why marginal cost of borrowing increased by 80 basis points is like we raised almost 600 crore in the form of NCDs and MLDs from the retail market. So through wealth management channel. So while like this is the first time that like we have used some of the arrangers to do this, and there is a fees associated. So the premium what we pay to the investors is at the same level, like which is at 10.5 level. But however, including fee, it has gone up. But however, it has opened up a new source of revenue for funding in the current situation, which is really good, which has really worked out very well, by which like we could raise almost 5,000 crores since lockdown.
Okay, so 1% approximately is the fees.
So that's quite a few PTC transactions in the last quarter. So we have done 2 transactions with the Federal Bank and 2 transactions with Poonawalla, and the total sale proceeds is 227 crores in the last quarter, Q3.
Assignment.
Yeah,
This is
PTC.
assignment, right? Okay.
Yeah, securitization, yes.
So basically, if I understand it right, the NCDs were issued at 10.5% and 1% was the fee that the facilitator charged.
No, in fact, the fee is little higher. It is not 1%. So though we have amortized, but again, like since it is paid upfront, like there is an additional cost beyond the premium paid to investors.
Okay, and
1.5 to 2%.
okay. And in your P&L also, your interest cost has gone up. So is that the reason for the increase in interest cost, finance cost?
No. On balance sheet debt, like it has increased a bit time. So if you see like last quarter to this quarter, the debt increased from. Yeah, I think debt increased by. No, so the debt like last quarter, September end, it was 3,354, and by December it was 4,619 crore, which means the debt outstanding increased by 1,300 crore. So to that extent, like the interest cost increased.
This is YOY, right?
No, quarter on quarter, September to December.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. That's from my side.
So we had 750 crore cash, and again portfolio also grew by 600 crore. As such, like the debt outstanding increased by 1,300 crore.
Mr. Chair.
And again, in the current situation, like there is a negative carry, like we are maintaining. Even that has some implication towards increased cost of borrowing.
All right. Any specific reason for keeping that high amount?
This is a suggestion, this is a recommendation, prescription from the board. So again, like last March, like it was all of a sudden, so we never expected that like such a kind of lockdown will come up. And again, like collections came to standstill. So of course, like we were able to quickly raise money so that like we did not avail moratorium. Like we paid every lender on time, both principal, interest, and everything. But again, like there were rumors like in the last 2-3 months that like yes, COVID might really happen one more time. So the cases are increasing. So then the board suggested us to maintain at least like 3 months loan repayment obligations for the next 6 months.
Oh, okay, sure. I'll join the question queue.
And the current situation is very, very critical.
Okay, I'll join the question queue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shripal Doshi from Equirus. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. And ma'am, thank you so much for the detailed presentation that we have released this time. Ma'am, first question was, so the liquidity that we have on balance sheet is currently close to 13%. So, as you were answering to the earlier participant, so we will sort of maintain this sort of liquidity on balance sheet going ahead?
I think the balance sheet, like it was 7,000 crore and like we had 750 crores. So it was about...
On balance sheet.
Yeah. The like as against 7,000 crore balance sheet, and of course like including cash and all, like that's 8,000 crore. Yeah. So on 8,000 crore, like we maintained 750 crore cash. And again, what happens is like in the quarter end, like in the last month, like bankers will be very active because like they have their own priority sector lending reporting. And again, like next month, like first month, for example, JFM. So January will be like very, very dull. So bankers like take their own time in terms of going to the credit committees, get sanctions, and again release funds. So we always prepare ourselves in terms of availing more funds at the end of the quarter, so that like next month, which is quarter beginning, we will not have a shortage of funds.
Right. Okay. And second question was that on a Q-on-Q basis, our customer base has shrunk, and whereas we've seen highest disbursement during the quarter. So have we like only disbursed to the existing customers, or we have also acquired newer customers during the quarter?
As I mentioned that we acquired only 63,000 new customers in the last quarter, but otherwise like 95%, 96% of the disbursements went to the existing borrowers only. So basically what happened like April, May, June, like we did not disburse. So we started disbursement only from July, August. And again, July, August also like it was less than 200 crore. So the real disbursement like started picking up like only this quarter and again end of the last quarter. So but again in the meantime, like almost like 6 lakhs borrowers who closed their loans and who are waiting for the loan. But again in the first quarter, like they were not very sure in terms of even if they avail loan also, whether they could properly utilize the loan amount for the income generating activity. So they were all waiting, and as such like there was more demand in the last quarter. And again generally like during December and also November, like which is a festival season, so most of the women like who have small businesses, so they can do more business, and like there is a seasonal requirement, and the requirement for cash will big time increase. So this is a normal trend that like we disburse more in November and December and January, of course, because of the festival season.
Right. Ma'am, what is our stage 1, 2, 3 split and our coverage? The stage-wise coverage. If you can give those numbers.
Yeah. So PAR 0 plus like it is 10.9%. But again, if you look at like the PAR 30 plus, that's 9.4%, and PAR 60 plus is 5.7%, and PAR 90 plus, like as I mentioned, it is 2.7%.
The coverage ratio is about 1% for stage 1. Stage 2 is about 17%, and stage 3 is about 53%. Apart from this, we also have about 120 crores ad hoc provision on the balance sheet.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. That's it from my side. Thank you so much. I'll come in the queue there for the questions.
Yes.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prenish Harishbhai Bhuva from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, ma'am. So, ma'am, couple of questions. One is on this pro forma NPL. So, what is the net NPL? I mean, what is the net pro forma NPL?
1%, Renish. NNPA was 1% as on 31st December.
Okay. And ma'am, when we say our collection is 96%, this is including arrears for past month, or how is it?
That includes arrears as well, but that excludes pre-closure, but it includes arrears.
Okay. And if we adjust for arrears, how would this number would look like?
It was for the quarter. It was 93%.
Excluding arrears, right, ma'am?
Excluding arrears, yes.
Okay. And what was the number in September quarter?
September it was 89.
Okay. Yeah. And then just a last question from my side. This is largely to the the borrowers who have not paid us. So one pool which we have already written off, and the second pool which is still there in on our book at around 2.2%. So ma'am, can you please throw some light on which geography is sort of having lower collection, wherein for almost like 120 days in December, and maybe another 30-60 days from now you don't foresee those customers to pay back. So which geography is causing this pain, ma'am?
It's basically like Odisha, which has higher contribution in terms of write-off. For example, out of 220 crores, 220 crore, like what we have written off in Madhya Pradesh, that is 34 crore. And our overall portfolio of MP is 17.33%. And when it comes to write-off, so it is 18%. But whereas Odisha, it has 17% of the overall AUM. But what we have written off, like that forms part of almost 26%. So it's basically Odisha, like where most of the portfolio that was written off, and followed by Chhattisgarh. So if I look at like the percentage of Chhattisgarh portfolio and what we have written off, like it is much higher. Chhattisgarh, like as a percentage of the portfolio, it is 7%. But what we have written off out there from the overall portfolio, it is about 12%. So it's Maharashtra, Odisha and Chhattisgarh, these three states. In terms of amount, like MP, we have written off 34 crore, Odisha is 51 crore, Karnataka 14 crore, Maharashtra 42 crore, and Chhattisgarh 20 crore. All other states, like it's less than a crore.
Oh, I missed the number for Chhattisgarh.
Chhattisgarh, it is 20 crore.
20 crore, okay. Yeah, and just if I can just squeeze in one last question on the provisioning part. So ma'am, so we carry around roughly 400 crore on balance sheet provision, against which we have almost 2.2% of the customer who have not paid us, and another 1% on the net NPA side. Plus, I mean, if I look at the PAR 60 number, which is roughly 6%, and I'm assuming that 2.2% who have not paid us will be part of this PAR 60 plus. So what sort of incremental provisioning requirement, ma'am, you foresee in Q4, or maybe you feel that from Q4 onwards the credit cost will normalize?
Also, we have like 50,000 borrowers like who did not pay any amount from September till January 15th. Like those loans outstanding was 220 crore, like which we have written off. Apart from this, like we have another 55,000 borrowers who have not paid their installments in full. But again, like they are not zero paid borrowers, like they are partially paid borrowers. These 55,000 borrowers, like they have another 230 crore loan which is outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So as against this, like we have 411 crore provision on the balance sheet.
Got it, ma'am. And what about the net NPL pool? Because I mean, those guys are already 90 days DPD. So maybe we have to return off them in Q4. I think by that time it will be 120 plus DPD.
So Ramesh, whatever 90% DPD you are referring to, the whatever ma'am told 230 crores, it is one other the same, sir. So because we are not getting regular collection from these borrowers, that is into the 90 days, and accordingly they have made the provision.
Got it. So there is an overlap between Par 60 and net NPA portfolio.
Yes.
Okay. And so this 5.7%, I mean, we are assuming that the 4% sort of number will be able to recover in Q4, and then maybe 2.5% we have to ultimately write off. Is that the fair assumption, ma'am?
Sorry, 5.7%. Yeah, 60 plus.
Par 60, Par 60 is 5.7. So maybe, looking at the current collection trend, we might be able to recover 4.5% from that pool. And ultimately, we have to write off what 230 crore you have said, would be around roughly 2% or so. Is that the fair assumption? I mean, is the fair assessment what you might have done internally?
The 60 plus borrowers like who have not paid in September, October the full installment, but again subsequently from October onwards like they started paying. So I don't think that like the 60 plus borrowers will move to 90 or 90 plus bucket. So for example, like in few places, if you look at Puri in Orissa, so the temple was just opened 15 days back. But again, like we already see like significant improvement in collection efficiency of Puri in the last 15 days. But whereas 15 days prior to this, so it was like very, very low. And then again, like 3 months back, like the collection efficiency in Ganjam, and if I compare the collection efficiency of Ganjam today, like when there was so much of in-migration, all the construction laborers like went back to Orissa, the collection efficiency was as low as like 60-65%. But again, like in no time, like in the last 2 months, like the collection efficiency in Ganjam has increased. So it does not mean that like borrowers who have not paid for 2 months, like they are not paying at all. So most of the borrowers, like they could not manage to pay. And again, like the information that like they received was, so it's not that like they could understand that yes, like moratorium is only till August, from September there is no moratorium, we have to start repayment. And like they were literally educating every borrower that like they cannot take that kind of excuse in terms of moratorium from September onwards. That took time. And again, like for example, most of the tourist places. So Goa, like it just picked up like last month. And again, same as Shirdi, same as Mysore. So some of these places, like the borrowers could not manage to pay their installments for 2 months. But again, like once they started paying from November onwards, they are quite regular. So I don't think that like this 5.8% of the portfolio, which is at risk, like 60 plus, that we have to write off.
Got it, ma'am. Got it. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for such a detailed answer. I will come back in the queue if I may have any other questions.
So at the most, like we have this 2.7%, like which is in 90 plus. So that we might have to write off. But however, like to that extent, like we already have 411 crore provision, there will be a provision right back.
Got it, ma'am. Got it. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Abdul. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rajesh.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants in the conference, please limit your questions to 2 per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, we would request you to rejoin the question queue. The next question is from the line of Siva Kumar from Unifi Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Ma'am, just to reiterate, so 50,000 borrowers who are not paying at all, 212 crores you have completely written off. Another 55,000 partially paying borrowers, about 230 crores. Against them, you have a provision of 411 crores. So the rest of the borrowers are all paying on time, right?
Yeah, rest of the borrowers, like for example, 60 plus borrowers, they were paying from November onwards. But again, we were to still make additional provision for these borrowers because the portfolio got into 60 days, and as per our provisioning policy, it attracted provision.
Okay, but subsequently you are saying that the collection.
The outstanding of 50,000 borrowers who are paying partially and who crossed 90 plus, so their outstanding is 220 crore. But again, if we just look at the provision is almost double. So, but why we have made extra provision is that is towards so even 30 plus to 60 and 60 plus to 90 and all these buckets as per our provisioning policy, of course they have been paying for the last 3 months consecutively, November, December, January. When we looked at information on 25th January, what we have seen is the 60 plus borrowers initially they paid less or they did not pay for 2 months, but again from 3rd month onwards they started paying. But however, as per the provisioning policy, technically we were required to make provision. As such, the provision what we carry is almost double the 90 plus par, which is 2.7%.
Got it, ma'am. Ma'am, so can one say that come Q4, there's a strong possibility that there might be write-backs from the excess provisions you are carrying, which is double the required provisions for partially paying borrowers? Can one say that?
My understanding is this 2.7% GNPA. So we might have to write off. So that will be 230 crore. But again, when we write off, it doesn't take any hit on P&L. So that extent, we will write back the provision, 411 crore.
Okay, so you still have 200 crores of excess provisions after that write-off, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Which includes the standard provisions in any case.
Right, ma'am. Right. Got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhishek Murarka from IIFL Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Thank you for taking my question. So, couple of questions more on the industry. One, if you can give an update of what is the current dialogue or situation about the Assam MFI bill, between RBI, MFIN and the government. So in terms of, whatever is the current, situation regarding the bill. Second question, ma'am, is about West Bengal. So, you've written in your presentation that you pulled out because you saw that customers were over-leveraged. I just wanted to ask, what is it that you saw, what changed in the last 3 or 6 months, and what are the data points, or if you can share anything specific that made you believe that, now the situation is overheated or customers are over-leveraged. So those two were my questions.
In fact, had somebody seen our business plan 4 or 5 years back, we always kept Assam as a next state for expansion because we were present in all states around Assam, so it was a kind of natural progression to Assam. But however, year after year, when we started looking at the portfolio numbers of Assam, so at one point in time, Assam had almost 16,000 crore portfolio, and again the population of Assam it's less than 3 crore. So if you try to recollect, in 2010, the AP, that time it was a unified state. So Andhra Pradesh and Telangana were together, and all MFIs put together, we had more than 1 crore borrowers in Andhra Pradesh. But again, that point in time, the portfolio of all MFIs put together, it was just 7,500 crore. So when I looked at these members, so Assam, which is 1/3 of Andhra Pradesh, but again it was already having almost double the portfolio. So I was not comfortable. And then again, if you look at the macroeconomic indicators, be it per capita income or GDP or market potential, it's not that Assam is a great state and even wages, like daily wages, like Assam doesn't really qualify to have like this kind of portfolio. And then again, like there were so many microfinance organizations, and again, like per borrower outstanding, all MFIs, all lenders put together, it was like very high. So it was in 2015-16, like it was almost 40,000. So as such, like we decided, and again, maybe like this comes from our AP experience, so we decided not to really start operations in Assam. So as far as bill is concerned, like they more or less like replicated AP bill. But again, certain areas like in Assam, what we don't have exposure in Assam, so I don't have direct information in terms of what is happening. But again, like every MFI, like which has portfolio out there, they're really feeling the stress. So in few places, and then again, what was different in Assam was in AP, like there was a political interference, like bureaucrats did not want microfinance organizations to operate. But again, borrowers always supported microfinance organizations. They never came out, they never agitated against microfinance organizations. They never said that like they are not able to repay the loans. But again, in Assam, like the situation was little bad because the borrowers themselves, like they started agitating against microfinance organizations, and somehow like they turned very, very negative. And again, like today, the government like being very well aware of the NBFC MFI regulation, like the finance minister has been even talking, saying that like Assam's per borrower loan outstanding is higher, 5% higher than the national average debt. So and again, like they were questioning in terms of like there is a regulation that only 2 or 3 lenders should give loan to one borrower, but again, like we have seen 5-6 lenders giving a loan. So as such, like there was no much that like MFIN could really do about this. And again, like the government said that yes, like they are passing the bill, and this is something like which is a political decision, and we cannot go back on this. I think, but however, our experience, like per se in Andhra, was good. Like after 2 years, we got Supreme Court judgment. Like we continue to open all the branches. So we collected like almost 1,300 crores from Andhra Pradesh, and we have been still collecting like the loans that we discussed 12 years back. So it always depends upon like the kind of relationship that you have and how the borrower perceives each microfinance organization. But again, the positive impact during that time was like this AP crisis did not impact like other states. Like to some extent, it has impacted the neighboring states. For example, like certain areas in Tamil Nadu who speak Telugu, like they were able to really understand what happened in AP. And again, like a few parts, for example, Bellary in Karnataka, they got impacted. But overall, like there was no impact on any other state. So I don't think that like whatever has happened in Assam will impact other states. I think that problem I don't really see. And again, West Bengal, like we started operations, but again, when we do credit bureau check. So in some of the parts like Purulia, places like when we were doing credit bureau check, every loan was getting rejected because like most of the borrowers, they have already taken 2 loans and their debt outstanding is already higher by 1 lakh. So almost like you can expect like 20 to 25% rejection. But again, when the rejection was as high as 70%, it took no time for us to understand that like this particular state is highly leveraged. Every borrower has taken 2-3 loans, and here better not we really expand. We are not required there. So we pulled back, and we did not open even single new branch in the last 3-4 years.
Great. And ma'am, just squeezing in one more question. So in one of your slides, you've shown how your collection efficiency on a monthly basis is actually better than a weekly, center meeting. But I just want to understand, ma'am, even if the borrowers want to do monthly meetings, why should the collection efficiency be lower on a fortnightly basis? Traditionally, what I understand is that if you have more regular meetings, the collection efficiency is better. So just trying to understand why this collection efficiency is better for a monthly meeting cycle versus a fortnightly.
I think here, like, the simple reason is, like, all the recent loans that we disbursed are monthly. And again, like, most of the monthly loans that we disbursed, like, post-COVID from 1st April. As such, like, we have 100% on-time repayment. So overall, like, monthly is doing better. But again, like, I'm not advocating that, like, monthly repayment frequency will have higher collection efficiency over bi-weekly. And again, it is not true to say that it's only like if you collect installments on a weekly basis, like, you can do better. If it is monthly, like, you will not be able to do good. So I think gone are the days, like, where borrower doesn't want to really spend so much of time. Like, she is almost like every microfinance borrower, while she is getting only 35,000 from each MFI, she is definitely borrowing from 2-3. So if it is weekly, like, she has to literally attend like 15 center meetings in a month, and it is next to impossible for her to attend these many center meetings and manage her cash flows and everything. So I think, like, whatever connect that we were talking today, borrowers are very well educated and they understand the credit bureau, they understand the implications of non-repayment. So I think, like, they don't want to spend like lots of time in terms of attending center meetings and managing this loan and all that. So you ask any microfinance borrower, like, in terms of what she wants, yeah. I think the first thing that comes to her mind is like, I want to repay loans on a monthly basis. Yeah. But again, the repayment frequency doesn't really determine the collection efficiency. In our case, it is higher just because, like, all the loans that we disbursed post-COVID are monthly.
Okay. But then in fortnightly, your collection efficiency should be the same as the collection efficiency that you are reporting for the pre-COVID portfolio, isn't it? So basically, when you your pre-COVID portfolio should also be at 90% collection efficiency.
No. Now, so pre-COVID, like, every loan was performing. We were getting 99.8% recovery.
No, I mean the pre-COVID portfolio. Let's say the portfolio before March. That portfolio's collection efficiency today should be 90%. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. That is correct.
Right. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for your answers. Thank you.
And since we have 100% collection efficiency on all new loans that we disbursed, like, the average overall collection efficiency increased to 97%.
Yes, I understand that, ma'am. Now it's clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please limit your questions to one per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, we would request you to rejoin the question queue. The next question is from the line of Vibha Batra from Fair Connect. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. This is on the disbursements to existing borrowers. And you said most of the disbursements are to existing borrowers. So is it possible that a borrower runs two loans, or she has to pre-close the existing loan and then take a new loan? How does the policy work?
So basically, like, from April onwards, we have not disbursed like top-up loans. So we are only disbursing loans to borrowers like who can pre-close existing one or two loans. So about 15% of the borrowers, like, by 31st March, had two loans. And in case the borrower has two loans now, in order to be eligible for the next loan, like, she should either close or pre-close all her two loans. And we are not giving any top-up loans. At this point in time, like, all the borrowers who got loan subsequent to April, they have only one loan active.
Okay. One loan active with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the average ticket size on disbursements now?
On disbursement, like, it is 38,000. But again, average disbursement, average portfolio for customers is loan outstanding 34,000.
Okay. And what do you think? Where will this level go? From 38,000, do you think it will go up further?
No, but again, what is important here to see is, so when like in a normal course of time, when you are acquiring clients, every branch acquire like about 100 to 200 borrowers. When you have like 1,000 branches, you will add like almost like 2 lakh, 1 lakh to 2 lakh new customers. So, and when it comes to first cycle borrower, we start with 20,000 or like maximum that we can go up to 30,000. The average ticket size for first cycle borrower will be 25,000, with 50% of the loans going to first cycle borrowers and 50% of the loans going to the existing borrowers. I think like it gets averaged out, and the ticket size we will not see significant increase. But right now what is happening is like it's as against like 2 lakh borrowers, 2-3 lakh borrowers that we acquired in a quarter. Like last quarter we just acquired 60,000. So out of 3 lakh loans that we have given in the last quarter, it is only 20% of the loans have gone to first cycle borrowers. So 80% of the loans have gone to existing borrowers. And again, like when a borrower is moving from second cycle to third cycle to fourth cycle, it's not that like each and every case there is an increase in the loan size, but at least like 70-80% of the borrowers, they always look for a larger loan size because they keep understanding their own cash flows and they have better understanding of what they can repay. So it is because like the first cycle clients are few and the existing borrowers, and we are not increasing the cycle cap for cycle. That like we have kept as it is. So even today, for example, second cycle borrowers, we are not giving more than 50,000, and for the third cycle borrowers, we are not giving more than 55,000. There is no increase in the cycle-wise caps. It's only borrowers who are graduating from second cycle to third cycle and third cycle to fourth cycle.
Okay, got it. So, ma'am, this average ticket size has gone up because of this composition where more of second cycle borrowers have gotten a loan, but our cost to income ratio has gone up despite the increase in ticket size, which means the number of transactions would have been lower. So do we assume that this cost to income ratio, I know part of it is because of the income reversals you did, but it's 23%. But on, going forward in your plans, how does it look? And another added question on P&L is this provisions, what we see from your collection efficiency. Why have you taken so much provision in this quarter, and why hasn't it been normalized so that at least, there was no loss in a quarter?
Yeah. First question, I think like you might have seen that like we have almost 600 staff increased compared with the previous quarter. So as such, like the salary cost has increased. And again, like the previous quarters, we were not acquiring new clients. Once we started acquiring new clients, the incentive has increased. So there is an increase in the employee cost. So that is one. And again, like as I mentioned, that we recognized 22 crore interest income, which was recognized on these loans which were written off. So as such, like the income got reduced by 22 crore, and there is a increase in the employee cost to the extent of 600 employees joined in the last quarter. That is why like there is a slight increase in the cost to revenue, the cost to income, sorry.
Thank you. This is the operator, Ms. Patra. May we request that you return to the question queue for follow-up questions? Thank you. We'll take the next question.
And to answer the other question, if you see, for example, like we made in January, February, March, like JFM 2020, we made 129 crore. By then, like there was no classification of NPA, like even pro forma, because like at that time moratorium was available, and we had no clue in terms of like how the collection efficiency is going to pan out. But still, like on a safer side, and again like the company was highly profitable. So in JFM, when we did not have any clue, like we made 130 crore provision. And again when it comes to Q1 of FY21, so where we got some sense in terms of like what is the collection efficiency. But however, in the Q1 also there was no requirement in terms of making provision because none of the loans slipped to 0 plus DPD. So like moratorium just got over. We still made 90 crore provision then. And next quarter like Q2, so that was the time like where we could see like since the count started from 1st September, like we could see like some of the borrowers not paying in the month of September, and we again made 114 crore provision. So like for all these 3 quarters, the provision was not on the basis of like the DPD, but like it was more in terms of looking at like how the future is going to be, and a prudent measure like we were very conservative in terms of making provisions, and as such like we already made 362 crore. And this quarter, so we just wrote off, and like there was no further provision made other than standard provision.
Thank you. We'll take the next question from the line of Nikhil Chaudhary from Credit Portfolio. Please go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. Had one question. Is there a change in our provisioning policy? Like earlier, if I recollect, we used to write off any loans which were DPD 90 plus. We have written off around 220 crores, which are 120 DPD, but we still have 2.7% 90-day DPD. So just wanted to understand, like, is there any change in our write-off like policy or something like that?
So all the loans, this is Firoz here. All the loans which we have written off are 90 days for December, but few loans which we have not written off because we were seeing some collections in these loans. So we wanted to observe those loans and how they are performing. Based on the performance, we may take call in March.
Okay. But usually, my understanding is correct, right? We usually write off anything that is 90-day DPD, right?
Yes, you're right.
Got it. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, we will take that as a last question. I would now like to hand the conference over to Ms. Padmaja Reddy for closing comments.
So thank you all for your time and patient hearing, and look forward to meeting you in the next quarter.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Spandana Spurti Financial Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.